Welcome to Study Time, a televised home learning program produced by Rwanda Education Board.
Hello students, welcome to TV Learning Program. I'm Teacher Julius as usual, and today I'm going to be with the Senior 4 Economics class. We are beginning our new Unit 7, which is Equilibrium and Price Determination. Then our today's lesson, I want us to see how we can determine how we can get equilibrium price and how we can determine equilibrium quantity. So you should be able at the end of this lesson, learners, to find an equilibrium price and an equilibrium quantity. In the previous lessons, in the previous units that we covered, the previous unit, which was the theory of supply, I expect you learners now at this time to be able to know how you can explain the law of supply, how you can explain supply, how you can draw a demand, a supply curve, then you explain it. You should be able to know factors which influence quantity supplied. You should be able to explain factors that may lead to a reduction in the supply of a commodity and factors which may increase the supply for a commodity. Then you should be able to explain the causes for the bending supply curve for a bar. So today now we are going to be in this new unit of ours, equilibrium and price determination. Then you should be able, as I have told you, to find or to determine an equilibrium price and determine an equilibrium quantity. We shall see how we can plot given data and we determine the two, and how we can use equations, equilibrium equations, to determine equilibrium quantity and equilibrium price. So what is an equilibrium price? What is an equilibrium price? The term equilibrium, that is where you find two things are two things are somehow equal. You are in a state whereby you're stable, two forces putting something are equal, and therefore there is no anything trying to change. So equilibrium price now is the ruling price in the market where quantity supplied is equal to quantity demanded. So they are balancing. To be in equilibrium, then two things must be balancing. So equilibrium price, this is the ruling price in the market where quantity supplied is equal to quantity demanded. So at that now we say, if quantity supplied is equal to quantity demanded, here we achieve what you call a market balance. At this point, quantity supplied, when it is equal to quantity demanded, we achieve two things. We achieve an equilibrium quantity, and then we achieve what you call an equilibrium price. So here we have, at this point, we have an equilibrium price. We have an equilibrium price, of which we can maybe say PE, equilibrium price. And then we have an equilibrium quantity. We have an equilibrium quantity. We have an equilibrium quantity, which you can say maybe QE. Remember this, the market is in balance because quantity supplied, what producers or what sellers can bring to the market, that quantity brought to the market can easily be bought by consumers, meaning that here we don't have a disequilibrium. We don't have either a shortage or a surplus. With a shortage, that's where we shall have excess demand. Goods that have been bought, that have been brought to the market are less. So in that case, when there is a disequilibrium, it is where you will find quantity supplied is less, or quantity demanded is greater than the quantity supplied. In this case, there is a disequilibrium and vice versa. When quantity supplied, if quantity supplied now is less than quantity demanded. This is a disequilibrium, and this one affects now the economy so much. Now, let's see now, what are the economic implications of this situation when there is a disequilibrium? If quantity demanded now is greater than quantity supplied, what has been brought to the market is less. That means people will compete, consumers will compete for the few available goods, and this will push prices high because demand is greater than supply. And now, if quantity supplied is greater than quantity demanded, in this case, we expect producers or sellers to reduce prices such that they can attract consumers to buy goods and services brought on the market. So in this situation, there is a disequilibrium. So to attain a market balance, to attain an equilibrium, then quantity supplied must be equal to quantity demanded. So how can you illustrate this? So simply how you can illustrate this, if this is our quantity, if this is our quantity demanded or supplied, and here if this is our price, then we must have our demand curve, which you all know, which has a negative slope, sloping from left to right, downwards. And then we have our supply curve, which has got a positive slope. So the point where these two curves are intersecting, that is the equilibrium point. Then along the x-axis where we have quantity demanded or quantity supplied, we attain an equilibrium quantity. So along this curve we have equilibrium quantity, and along the y-axis where we have the price, we attain our equilibrium price. So here at this point now, this is a point of equilibrium where quantity demanded is equal to quantity supplied. And therefore, at this point, we attain a market balance. So equilibrium price is the ruling price in the market where quantity supplied is equal to quantity demanded. Then what is an equilibrium quantity now? That is the quantity exchanged when the market is in balance, and that is when quantity supplied is equal to quantity demanded. Therefore, the two are achieved when quantity demanded is equal to quantity supplied. That's when you achieve equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity. And remember, I've said you can also have a disequilibrium, either a shortage, that is excess demand, a surplus, excess supply. And the two have got economic implications and economy, as I have explained. So now, let's see how we can use that information that we have, then we plot and determine the two, equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity. We have that table where we have price per kilogram of meat and quantity demanded of meat, then quantity supplied of meat. So we have to illustrate it, and we see if we can attain that. So if this is our graph, we can try to plot it using the information that we have. Here, this is our price in Rwandan francs. Then here, we may have our quantity demanded or supplied in this case. So on price, we have 1,000 up to 3,000. So we have 1,000. Then we have 1,000. Then we have 1,500. Then we have 2,000. Then we have 2,500. Then we have 3,000. We have 3,000. Then here we can also look for a suitable scale where we can have 5, where we can have 10, we can have 15, we can have 20, we can have 25, then we can have 30 or maybe 35, up to 40 if you want. So here you plot. We can begin by plotting price of meat, then with quantity demanded of meat. We first look at that. At 1,000, if you can check very well, quantity demanded is kilograms. And this it is 30 kilograms. And if you can check very well, as price kept on increasing, you can check quantity demanded kept on reducing. That shows an inverse relationship between quantity demanded and the price. Then if you can check price and quantity supplied, as price kept on increasing, quantity supplied also kept on increasing. That shows now a positive relationship. The law of supply, the higher the price, the higher the quantity supplied, and vice versa. Then if you look at demand, the higher the price, the lower the quantity demanded. As you can check, at the lowest price we have the highest quantity demanded. Then when it comes to supply, at the lowest price we have the lowest quantity supplied. But at the highest price we have the highest quantity supplied. You can check that. So let's now try to plot and try to illustrate and estimate our quantity demanded, estimate our equilibrium price and our equilibrium quantity. So at 1,000, if you can begin with quantity demanded, we have 30 kilograms. We have 30 kilograms that were demanded. So you can try to estimate that. We have 30 kilograms, so it's somewhere there. Then at 1,500, we have 25 kilograms. We have 25 kilograms. So you can also try to estimate. You can also try to estimate it somewhere there. That's where they meet. Then at 2,000, we have 20. You can also try to estimate that. At 2,000, we have something like 20 here. So you have to try to estimate and see. Then at 2,500, we have 15. We have 15 kilograms that we are demanded. At 3,000, we have 10. You can try to check. You can try to check. So here, then you can try to draw your demand curve. You can try to draw your demand curve. Then from there, we plot price with quantity supplied. At 1,000, they supplied 10. So you can try to estimate somewhere here. Then at 1,500, they supplied 15. They supplied 15. They supplied 15. Then at 2,000, they supplied 20. So you can check at 2,000, they supplied 20. So you can check where they are trying to meet. Then at 2,500, they supplied, at 2,500, they supplied 25. They supplied 25. So you can try to check. Then at 3,000, they supplied 30 kilograms. At 3,000, they supplied 30 kilograms. So you can try to check where they meet. So if you draw your supply curve, you can check how can we now determine equilibrium quantity and equilibrium price. So you have to check the intersection of the two curves, the demand curve and the supply curves. You have to check where the two are meeting, where the two are intersecting. Then along the y-axis, then you have to determine your equilibrium price. Then along the x-axis, when you move down, you have to determine your equilibrium quantity. You have to determine your equilibrium quantity, here you have to determine your equilibrium price. Therefore, how do you state this? So from our plotted graph, we can estimate our equilibrium price. We can estimate our equilibrium price. So what will be our equilibrium price? And what will be our equilibrium quantity? What will be our equilibrium quantity? What will be our equilibrium quantity? So our equilibrium price, you have to move along, you have to check the point of intersection. This is an equilibrium point. Then move to this y-axis. So our equilibrium price is 2,000 Rwandan francs, as you can check, because you have to determine it from here. Then move to the x-axis, then you determine our equilibrium quantity, QE, which is 20 kilograms, kilograms. So this becomes our equilibrium quantity, 20 kilograms, then our equilibrium price, 2,100 francs. So that's how you can use this, and then you determine your equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity. You should be in a position now to plot any given information, to plot quantity demanded and quantity supplied on the same graph and determine equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity. Very well. Then, let's try to see how can you use given equations, and then you determine equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity. So we have a system of equations, linear equations there, which we can try to solve and determine quantity demanded, quantity supplied, and the equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity. So you must know, at equilibrium point, quantity demanded is equal to quantity supplied. That is the condition. To attain a market balance, equilibrium quantity supplied must be equal to quantity demanded. If they are not equal, then there is a shortage, or there is a shortage, that is excess demand, or there is a surplus, that is excess supply. So to attain a market balance, then quantity demanded should be equal to quantity. What is brought to the market should be bought. The two should balance. The two forces should balance. If they are not balancing, then we have a disequilibrium in the market, of which it has got what are economic implications on an economy. So let's see now, if we have system of equations. One, we have quantity demanded, as you can check, which is 8P minus 4. Then we have quantity supplied, which is equal to 26 minus 2P. As I have said, at equilibrium, quantity demanded is equal to quantity supplied. These are two linear equations, therefore you must equate them. And then you solve for the value of P, and the value of P, that will be equilibrium price, then the value of Q, that will be equilibrium quantity, of which the equilibrium quantity, that will be equilibrium, that will be quantity supplied or quantity demanded. So now, you must know that at equilibrium, at the point of equilibrium, quantity demanded should be equal to quantity supplied. This condition must hold. Then from there, we have our 8P minus 4, which is equal to 26 minus 2P. So here you have to apply some simple mathematics. Simple mathematics. You correct like terms, then you solve for the value of P, which will be our equilibrium price. So you have to make sure you bring, you can bring minus 2P this side, then you take negative 4 this side. If you bring negative 2P this side, if it crosses equal signs, then it becomes a positive. If a negative, when it crosses equal signs, it will become a positive. So therefore, we shall have 8P plus 2P. We have brought this side. Then we take negative 4 this side, which is equal to 26 plus 4. Then from there, we shall have 10P here, which is equal to 30. What do you do to get the value of P? You divide by 10 both sides. So if you divide by 10, that means the value of P here is 3. And remember, our P is the equilibrium price. So our equilibrium price now is 3, you can say 100 francs. 3 Rwandan francs as a value of P. Then we can substitute to get our equilibrium quantity. From this or from this, from either of the equations, they should give the same answer. For example, using quantity demanded equaling to 8 times the value of P, The value of P is 3. Then minus 4. This gives you 8 times 3 gives you 24. When you subtract 4, that means you remain with 20. So quantity demanded is 20. Even if you substitute here now the value of P, you will still get 20. Because at equilibrium, quantity demanded is equal to quantity supplied. So this is our quantity demanded. You can even substitute here the value of P, because 2 times 3, that is 6. Then 26 minus 6 will also give you 20 as quantity supplied. Therefore, you have to conclude that our equilibrium quantity here, our equilibrium quantity is 20 kilograms. Or if you are given units, so equilibrium, it will be 20 kilograms, given the units. So, quantity demanded should be equal to quantity supplied. Because if you put the value of P here, then you will find you get 20, you get 20. So that's how you can solve this, and then you determine equilibrium quantity and equilibrium price. Then we have the second system of equations, where we have P is equal to 10 plus 2Q. And again, we have P is equal to 50 minus 2Q. So use the two. P, that is our price. Q, that is our quantity. Then you determine our equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity. Can you please try it out and see what you get? Can I give you like 2 minutes or 3 minutes to try out the second system of linear equations, and I see the value of P and the value of Q that you will get? The value of P, that will be our equilibrium price. Then the value of Q, that will be our equilibrium quantity, of which when you talk about equilibrium quantity, that may be equilibrium quantity demanded, quantity supplied, because at equilibrium quantity demanded is equal to quantity supplied. So can you solve that system of linear equations and determine the values of the two variables? Okay, so let's see now how we can get, let us do it together, and then you check your answers and see if you have gotten what we are going to get here. So we have P, which is equal to 10 minus 2Q. Then again, we have P, these are our two linear equations, which is equal to 50, then here it is a plus, then here it is 50 minus 2Q. So these are our two equations now, which have been given terms of price. So let's try now to solve them. We determine our equilibrium price, which will be this, and our equilibrium quantity. So now, equate the two equations, because these are all PP. So that means 10 plus 2Q is equal to 50 minus 2Q. So you correct the right terms as we have done here. You can either bring this side, you can bring this side, or this side. So now, if you bring negative 2Q this side and you take 10 this side, then that means we shall have 2Q plus 2Q, which is equal to 50. Then when you bring 10 this side, it becomes minus. Here, it has changed to a positive, and we have taken this side. Then when it crosses here, it is a positive, it will become a negative. And negative 2Q, when you bring it this side, it becomes positive 2Q. When you add, you get 4Q, which is equal to 40. You divide by 4 for you to get the value of Q. So our Q will be equal to 10. If you get 40, then you divide by 4, you get 10. So our equilibrium quantity now, if they are kilograms, that will be 10. So our equilibrium quantity because that's our objective. Our equilibrium quantity here, our equilibrium quantity, call it maybe Q is equal to 10, maybe kilograms. Then you can substitute the value of Q in any of the equations, then you determine equilibrium price. For example now, from this equation, P is equal to 10 plus 2 times the value of Q, which is 10. Here you are going to get 10 plus 20. 20 from where? 2 times 10. And therefore, your P is 30. If it is Rwandan francs, you have to put, because this is our price. Therefore, our equilibrium price, we can conclude that E is equal to 30 Rwandan francs. 30 Rwandan francs. So this is how you can use equilibrium equations to determine equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity. So now we have the third system of linear equation, which I want you to write and do as an assignment. Because I know by now you are in a position of solving and determining equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity using a system of linear equations. So the third system of linear equation, we have quantity demanded, which is equal to 20 minus 2p. Then we have quantity supplied, which is negative 10 plus 2p. So I want you to solve that as your assignment. You determine equilibrium price and you determine equilibrium quantity. And even if you want, you can even illustrate that on the graph by showing here the value that you have gotten and here the value that you have gotten. Hope that's very easy for you. Thank you very much for watching and listening. We meet next time in the next lesson. Bye-bye.